Lidwas, the Indian Armed Forces, in conjunction with Jammu and Kashmir Police, have today successfully neutralized 3 terrorists in the Srinagar area. The operation, codenamed Mahadev, got underway earlier today based on intelligence inputs. Indian security forces, namely the Indian Army's Chenab Corps, J&K Police and CRPF, launched a coordinated operation in the Lidwas sector near Dachigam National Park, Srinagar, and following a gunfight that lasted several hours, 3 terrorists were confirmed killed. Amongst the deceased was one of Lashkar-e-Taiba's top commanders, Hashim Moosa, also known as Suleiman Shah. Moosa was wanted for his key role in the Pahalgam terror attack, amongst various other terrorist activities. The encounter took place in a dense forest area some 30 kilometers northeast of Srinagar city, near a hill called Mahadev Peak, hence the name for the operation. The operation also discovered a well-supplied terrorist hideout in the surrounding area. The terrorists had access to clean water, food and had stored ammunition in the hideout, which was raided by the security forces. Important developments have taken place today as the Parliament continues this discussion on the Pahalgam terror attack and Operation Sindoor. We're now learning that one of the key executors of the Pahalgam terror attack has been killed. On that note, viewers, joining me on the broadcast is Dr. Dhirendra Tayal of the BJP, Saral Patel of the Congress, Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, Major General Sudhakar ji with us as well. But I'd like to begin, if I may, with Mr. Rajesh Narwal, father of Vinay Narwal, joining me on the broadcast. Mr. Narwal, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to NewsX. I, of course, have to begin by asking you, what are you feeling right now as you're learning that one of the terrorists who was responsible for the Pahalgam terror attack has been killed today? राजेश जी, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
आपकी आवाज आ रही है मैम, लेकिन आपका वीडियो नजर नहीं आ रहा।
जी राजेश जी, अनफॉर्चुनेटली आप मुझे देख नहीं पाएंगे, आपको सिर्फ मेरी आवाज आएगी। सबसे पहले तो आपका धन्यवाद करना चाहते हैं आप न्यूज़एक्स से बात करने के लिए। आपसे ये समझना चाहूंगी राजेश जी कि कैसा महसूस हो रहा है आपको, परिवार वालों को, ये जानकर कि एक टेररिस्ट, one of the key executors of the Pahalgam terror attack, जिसमें अनफॉर्चुनेटली आपने अपने बेटे को खो दिया, उनको, उस टेररिस्ट को आज हमारी सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस ने न्यूट्रलाइज कर दिया है।
मैडम, इस बारे में सबसे पहले तो यही कहूँगा मैं कि हमारी सेना के जवानों ने, पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेस के जवानों ने और J&K पुलिस के ज्वाइंट ऑपरेशन के रूप में जो ऑपरेशन महादेव चलाया और इतने डेंस फॉरेस्ट में इनको ढूंढा और इनको ढूंढ करके इनको जो सजा ये डिजर्व करते थे वो इनको दी, तो उसके लिए मैं सैल्यूट करता हूँ अपने जवानों को और उनकी अदम्य साहस को और उनकी वीरता को और शौर्य को। दूसरा
जी राजेश जी बताइए।
आज जैसे कि आपने बताया, मैंने दिन में न्यूज़ भी सुना कि ये हाशिम मूसा करके जो सुलेमान शाह है, ये एक की मैन था उसमें टेररिस्ट अटैक जो पहलगाम में 22 में हुआ, जिसमें मेरा बेटा लेफ्टिनेंट विनय नरवाल भी हमने खो दिया। तो और ये जानकर पता लगा कि ये मूसा कहीं ये स्पेशल सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप है पाकिस्तान डिफेंस का, उसमें ये पैरा कमांडो भी रहा है, जो बार बार हमारा मतलब पाकिस्तान जो पड़ोसी देश है ये हाथ झाड़ लेता है कि हमारे द्वारा ये स्पॉन्सर्ड नहीं है, प्रायोजित नहीं है, तो इसमें अब साक्ष्य की क्या ज़रूरत रह गई है। तो एक ये, और दूसरा फिर इसको हमारे जवानों ने जो आज सजा दी, उससे हमारे परिवार को, इस देशवासियों को, पूरे राष्ट्र को कहीं ना कहीं एक सांत्वना मिलने का कार्य हुआ है। परंतु पूर्णतः सांत्वना तो तब मिलेगी हम पूरे भारतवासियों को, इस ग्लोब पे रहने वाले हर इंसान को, कि इस तरह का कोई भी आतंकवादी है वो, उसके लिए कोई जगह तो यहाँ पर नहीं है। तो उनको निस्तानाबूद करना बहुत जरूरी है।
जी राजेश जी, आपसे ये समझना चाहेंगे आपको कितना भरोसा है इंडियन फोर्सेस पर, इंडियन पुलिस पर, कि वो जितने भी टेररिस्ट थे पहलगाम टेरर अटैक में इन्वॉल्व, उन सब को न्यूट्रलाइज कर देंगे?
हाँ मैडम, मुझे पहले दिन से ही इन पर पूरा भरोसा, पूर्णतः भरोसा, पूर्णतः मीन्स 100%, मीन्स 100%। मैंने शुरू में पहले दिन भी कहा था 23 तारीख को कि हमारे सेना के जवान, हमारे पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेस के जवान और हमारे पुलिस के जवान जो हैं इतने डेडिकेटेड है, इतने समर्पित हैं कि जो जिन्होंने ये कृत्य किया है उनको वो बख्शेंगे नहीं, उनको ढूंढ के उनको जो सजा उनको दी जाएगी, उनको नहीं बख्शेंगे। मुझे पूर्णतः भरोसा था और उन्होंने ये करके दिखाया, जो मैं उनको सैल्यूट करता हूँ बार बार। और पूरे देश में इनका ऑनर होना चाहिए और पूरे देश को इनको सैल्यूट करना चाहिए।
एट द सेम, आपसे ये भी समझना चाहेंगे राजेश जी, अब घर में कैसे कोप कर रहे हैं आप सब आफ्टर द लॉस ऑफ विनय? विनय के जाने के बाद सब कैसे कोप कर रहे हैं?
एक कहावत है कि जिस तन लागे वो तन जाने। मैं आपको शब्दों में तो बता सकता हूँ, पर सही में हमारे जीवन में क्या घटित हो रहा है, किस तरह से हम कोप अप कर पा रहे हैं, जी पा रहे हैं, वो इमेजिन करना भी आम आदमी के लिए बड़ा मुश्किल है
जी।
बहुत, मतलब जैसे जैसे दिन निकल रहे हैं तो और भी ज्यादा ये टफ हो रहा है हमारे लिए, बहुत टफ हो रहा है, बहुत टफ है।
राजेश जी, कुछ ऐसा सरकार कर सकती है या कोई और कर सकता है जिससे कहीं आपके मन को, परिवार के मन को कुछ शांति मिले?
मैडम, शांति तो मिलने की बात ये है कि वो तो मिल ही नहीं सकती, जिसका
जी,
जवान
मैं
बेटा
मैं
चला गया,
समझ
भाई
सकती
चला
हूँ, मैं
गया, वो
समझ
तो
सकती हूँ,
पॉसिबल
आपने
नहीं
अपना
है।
बेटा
तो
खोया है।
सरकार का तो ये है कि सरकार जो करना कर सकती थी उन्होंने करके दिखाया कि उन आतंकवादियों को हमारा मतलब हमारी सेना के जवानों ने ढूंढा और उनको आज सजा दी। तो इस तरह की कोई दोबारा से ऐसी घटनाएं ना हो, और इस तरह के जो आतंकवादी छोटे मोटे जो पल रहे हैं, छोटे हैं बड़े हैं, कुछ सीख रहे हैं, ट्रेनिंग ले रहे हैं, ट्रेनिंग सेंटर्स हैं, उन सब को खत्म करना चाहिए इस दुनिया देश से, पूरे ग्लोब से। तो वही एक शांति मिलने वाला काम है हम सबको, मुझे भी, मेरे देशवासियों को भी।
जी एब्सोल्युटली राजेश जी, आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए। एंड जैसा कि आपने कहा कि कोशिश यही रहनी चाहिए गवर्नमेंट की, द गवर्नमेंट शुड बी फोकस्ड, द सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस शुड बी फोकस्ड टू इंश्योर दैट देयर इज never again a repetition of what has happened in Pahalgam, where Rajesh Narwal is just one of the parents, one of the people, Indian people who's lost a loved one. Rajesh ji, thank you so much for joining us. Let me come to Professor Madhav Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, there's a fierce discussion going on in the parliament right now, sir, and several questions continue to get muddled because there's a lot of to and fro between the opposition as well as the government at this point in time. But what really needs to be our realization as far as intel reports and continuing such operations on the ground is concerned, the fact that we have now managed to neutralize one of the key executors of the Pahalgam terror attack, how critical is it for us to continue this momentum?
There's no question that it is critical to continue this momentum, and I mean, frankly, we join the parent that you have interviewed in his grief at the terrible loss. I mean, they went there for a holiday. They went there for a good time, and this is the time. This is what they got in exchange, and the reason was that the Pakistan army wants to destroy the Kashmiri economy. The tourism is a very important part of the economy of Kashmir. Several tens of thousands of people live well because of tourism. And the whole idea behind this terrible attack was to basically completely diminish the flow of tourists into Kashmir. But I'd like to say, and it's a tribute to the bravery of the people of India that that has not happened, and people have continued to go to one of the most beautiful parts of India, namely the state of Kashmir, the Kashmir, which is of course, the Union territory. Now, I'd like to say very clearly that there's no question that every single hideout should be eliminated, and I think the biggest support for this will come from the local people. In Punjab, the tide was turned when the local people came out in overwhelming numbers and said, we are not going to tolerate our state being destroyed anymore. And they came out and they gave valuable intel, and as a consequence, terrorism was eliminated in the Punjab. And the same is now happening in Kashmir. People of Kashmir, frankly, overwhelming majority have understood the deadly effect of terrorism on their own lives, on their own futures, on the futures of their children. And they're therefore coming forward with intel, of course, naturally on a highly confidential basis. And as a result of that intel, the security forces are very, very, if I may say so, a very valorous army and paramilitary forces are enabled to neutralize the terrorists responsible. I am very happy that one of the terrorists responsible has been, in a sense, neutralized so that he can no longer kill innocent people again. And I again like to say that terror was wiped out in the Punjab, and terror will be wiped out in Kashmir, and you're seeing that happen in the heightened activity of the military and paramilitary forces, and in the much better intel that's available to them by the police there and by their own intel operations. So I'd like to say the first, if I may say so, requirement is overwhelming support of the people. We had that in the Punjab, and now we have got that in Kashmir, and we have seen that through the removal of Article 370, creating not a ripple, but this must continue until every single terror hideout is wiped out. It has definitely got to continue so that people feel completely safe and secure when going to one of the most beautiful parts of India, Devika.
Absolutely. Major Sudhakar ji, I want to bring you into the conversation here, sir. One critical question that the opposition and others continue to pose is this, right? The fact that has the government done its duty in bringing the perpetrators of the Pahalgam terror attack to justice? Have these terrorists been neutralized? Have the identities of these terrorists been exposed? Who are these people? Where did they come from? I want to understand from your perspective, does it make sense for the government or the intelligence agencies to release the details that they have at this point in time, or do we have to understand and appreciate the fact that this is continues to be an ongoing operation, and it may not be in the best interest of the security forces, the police personnel, to at this point in time release all details? What's your perspective, sir?
Devika, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. Compliments to you and NewsX channel, as always. I'm complimenting NewsX channel because it's one of the very few channels, mainstream channels, which picks up the right theme for nation building. The question which you are asking is very, very important for our people to understand that in military application or military science, there are certain issues which is best left to the experts. If you start, meddling into the domain expertise, then the military, at some point in time, I'm fearing they will say, well, if you want to finger issues which are best left to us, you might as well come and fight in the front line, face the brunt or the stark reality, face the bullets. You save the country. So, sorry, I didn't want to make this statement, but I'm making this here because it's about time that sooner we realize better it is in matter related to national security. Let's not make any fracas. Let's not make any kind of loose statement and discuss issues which our adversaries would be enjoying sitting in Beijing and Rawalpindi. They will be clapping that, yes, a bigger design is unfolding gradually without doing anything. So having said that, now allow me, first of all, this is a profound historic milestones as far as military victories are concerned, not only in 21st century, but also in 20th century. It has surpassed the milestones which were achieved even prior to the Second World War and prior to that. No military ever in the history of military science in the world has ever brought the adversary on his knees in just about 88 hours. When I am saying this, I am very convinced. I was not present here in the country when Operation Sindoor was panning out between 7th of May to 10th of May. I was overseas and I was dismayed to actually hear very debilitating and discouraging comments from multiple media houses, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, despite the hands down victory that our Indian armed forces posted and delivered. We had to hear lots of adverse comments from these media houses. When I tried my best to speak to these people, I found that they were into their usual historic information warfare. So one of my Russian colleagues who was with me, he said, "General, don't worry. Russia never fights information warfare. We fight the real war in the battlefield." So that's what Indian Army is good at. We must continue to do that, but at all cost. And third and next point, Devika, if you allow me, I wish to say something. That it's about time that politics has to be delinked. If at all they want to discuss certain issues, my humble submission to the leadership is let them discuss in-house, in camera, or one-on-one, but not in public domain. What is discussed in parliament today, it goes down to the soldier who's battling out day in and day out. This Dachigam operation, I have planned operations. I have participated operations in this. I have been in the terrain. They're such hostile and I would say very difficult terrain and very, I would say, thickly forested area. It's a rainy season there, and I would say Vishnu Mata, sorry, we have another tourist season coming in. Pahalgaon is one issue, another issue is Dachigam. Let me remind our public that America, the superpower, took almost over a decade to narrow down to Osama bin Laden and thereafter neutralize him in Abbottabad in Pakistan. Our armed forces have taken just little over 3 months' time to narrow down and neutralize the mastermind of this Pahalgam carnage. This is an issue which needs to be complemented. Second issue, I have been in the jungles. It is not that easy to operate. 24/7, 365 days, our soldiers have been trying to narrow down. Compliments to the military intelligence, compliments to our ISRO and the satellite ecosystem which is operating on this area. That is how we have been able to narrow down and actually neutralize this guy in a little over 3 months' time. Next point I have is something to share through your channel, is that there is a communication equipment which China has passed down to Pakistan. That communication equipment is Ultraset, ULTRA, Ultraset ACT, which is made for Pakistan Army. But as per my independent autonomous research as a student of geopolitics, strategy and security, I am given to understand, and I have got from the open source, this equipment has reached the terrorists, Lashkar-e-Taiba, you call them TRF or whatever name. Now what is this equipment? This equipment can operate on radio waves for message transmission and reception, linked to a control station across the border. The messages are compressed and transmitted via Chinese satellites to a master server in Pakistan. There is some gentleman in ISI, some gentlemen in Pakistan Army in Operation Directorate who are coordinating all the activities, giving directions to these people. And this is a very welcome input which I am sharing. Our Indian armed forces do well if they can crack and find some countermeasure to render this equipment ineffective. Because of this equipment, all their messages are getting encrypted. We are unable to intercept. And therefore, through your channel, through you, Devika, I would like to share this with our people who are actually contesting and fighting every battle in the Parliament House to go into the specifics, get down to the details, give such kind of details which will enable our armed forces to fight the battle on the ground successfully. Back to you,
Okay,
please.
all right. Saral Patel of the Congress. Saral Patel, bring you into the conversation. Does this somewhere answer the questions that have been raised in the parliament today by the Congress, by the opposition? The fact that one of the terrorists who was a key conspirator of the Pahalgam terror attack has been neutralized?
First of all, I would like to thank, on behalf of every Indian, Rajeshi and his daughter-in-law Himanshi, who showed remarkable strength during the aftermath of what transpired in Pahalgam. Secondly, I would like to congratulate all our brave Jawans who fought valiantly to neutralize this terrorist today. And today's operation shows that our soldiers know how to shoot straight. But what India needs is a government that can think straight, from acting on credible intel before the terror strikes to mounting global pressure that we should after it. Until and unless Prime Minister Modi and the government explains why there was an abrupt ceasefire on May 10th, when our armed forces were so close to changing the geography of South Asia, every operation like today's Operation Mahadev will just be an episode and not an end. And I share the frustration of the Major Sahab who spoke before me, that the decisions of armed forces should be left to the armed forces. And he shares that frustration that the surrender in the ceasefire in Operation Sindoor was a diplomatic surrender and not at all done in consultation with armed forces. So government must also answer that it's been 100 days since the attack happened, and for last 100 days, these killers hid, regrouped, and even planned fresh strikes inside our own borders. This is a glaring proof that India's internal security grid is cracked wide open. While our soldiers have finally closed the manhunt today, the government must now close the credibility gap that it has drag on for 100 days. So, there is a fitting quote somewhere that national security begins with national accountability, and that accountability tonight fairly and squarely rests with the Prime Minister, and I hope he answers all the questions in the Parliament tomorrow.
Okay, Dr. Dhirendra Tayal, how do you respond to that?
I think some of the things that have been raised here, first of all, accountability. What is very interesting to note is that the accountability that was being asked for forever, even while Operation Sindoor was on by the leader of the opposition, the very youthful Rahul Gandhi ji, was only about how many Rafales shot down. Tell me that. He was told we did not lose any men, which should have been what was of essence, right? Like Rajnath Singh ji said today, the results matter. When in education, results matter, not how many pens you used or lost. But their question was the question which they were asking on behalf of Pakistan. Tell me how many Rafales. He did not ask how many Pakistani air bases damaged. What was the damage to Pakistan, which was on every Indian's mind? Why was his mind and why was the Congress mind working in parallel, in tandem with Pakistan, is the question of accountability. The other thing, when they say about accountability, what is very, I hope my friend Mr. Saral would remember that Manishankar Iyer went to Pakistan and said, help me defeat Modi. To Pakistan, help me defeat Modi, that is the level of desperation. They also been talking about in the parliament about China in very loud voices, but let your viewers know that the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation has received crores of rupees from Chinese government and the Chinese embassy. So what the MOU that Congress government has signed with China, they have not disclosed it yet. So let us put that thing aside. But yes, all compliments to the Indian forces who've done a tremendous job. And what we are witnessing today is not just a counter-terrorist operation. This is India's renewed doctrine of zero tolerance. cross-border accountability, and proactive deterrence. Operations like, Sindoor and Mahadev aren't isolated events. Let's be very clear. They're part of a calibrated national security architecture under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. So let's be very clear about it. The second thing which had been tom-tommed for long, that okay, you've done this, you've blasted the air bases, you've done that, but where are those people? Two things I want to say on that. One, we have found out where are those people. But when a mosquito comes and bites me, do I hunt for that specific mosquito? Or do I kill the breeding of the mosquito? The eggs, the larvae, everything, which is what the Indian government, the Indian forces, the Indian country did at that time, which should have been appreciated. But what came from Congress, somehow they've misunderstood the meaning of opposition. They're an alternative, they're not an opposition, but they've taken the word opposition so seriously that they do not realize when they start opposing the country itself. And they were opposing the country. Where are those three? Okay, today you know where one of them is. So what has been happening, and I appreciate what the general said, that it took 10 years for US to hunt down Osama bin Laden, and where was he found? But there has been something which has been going on across the world, across India, across Pakistan, and the Mr. Jaishankar, who was speaking just before you started the event, made it very, very clear on what India's new doctrine is. See what has been happening in the last so many days, whether it is Bhutto or all the other leaders of Pakistan are virtually groveling. Please speak to us. And the message given is very, very terse, straight. Blood and water shall not flow together. Terror and talks shall not happen together. That is the message. They're groveling today. So on one hand, without hurting the Indian economy, which is growing, which at this moment when companies are moving out of China, the world is looking at entering India rather than a long drawn thing. It was quick, it was fast, it was devastating.
Okay.
The kind of work that has been done by the Indian Armed Forces, hats off to them and hats off to the government, which supported them and provided them everything that it could be done.
Okay, all right. With that, I've run out of time, but I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast. Remember, viewers, we continue our rolling coverage of the monsoon session in the Parliament on the other side. And of course, tomorrow expected to be another big day as far as the Parliament is concerned. Stay tuned to NewsX.